The second half of our presentation today is going to consist of about 8 shorter segments. We're going to have a variety of speakers, so it'll mix it up a little bit for you. Michael's going to start, and then I'll talk about a few things, and then Daniel and Ashley will kind of wrap things up for us today.
Okay, yeah, I went back to that application. I couldn't, I was able to submit it, but it didn't come up with my receipt. So I'm just going to quickly show you how you can track that down. So if you go under your submittal tab, click on track submissions, and then you're going to see there's the application we just did. So, and it's been partially received. So again, I just wanted to reiterate that this is just problems we're having with the test site. There were some changes made that aren't complete yet. We're not having that issue with the production site, so that's fine. You guys won't be affected by that when you're doing your application. But this is similar to the screen that you would see once the submission goes through. We'll send you something back. I don't know if anybody wants me to correct me on that, but it'd be similar to this, showing you what you submitted. And then if you go under here, under receipt, you can actually get a receipt for it. And that's going to kind of go through the what was in the application.
Yeah, that's what it would look like. There's the receipt right there.
Yep. So, and if you are including a check, we just ask that you print that out and include it with your check, because sometimes we get checks, we don't know which application they're for, especially if you've submitted multiple applications. So that's what it looked like. But yeah, what I wanted to go through real quickly was how you can make modifications to existing units quickly with the system. So as I showed you before, even if you open a new application, you can just click on those existing units to include an application, check them. So that makes it real fast. Another thing you can do is if you submit an application in the past, you got a permit for a unit, and then in the future you wanted to go back and change it, you can copy that whole application. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So I submitted an application under 49473. So I'm going to search for that. And that's going to bring up that application. And then you can click on view. And then you can come up here to this copy submittal, and it's going to copy that original application in its entirety. And then you can go through and just make any changes that are part of this project. So you just click on copy submittal, and that's going to come up for you. So you can see all the information that you had in your original applications there. And then you just go to your specific, you know, if you're changing the stack, you go to a mission point, make that change, and then go through the submittal process. So that's just another advantage of Easy Air. It's going to make those modifications a lot simpler in the future. If your information is in the system, you won't have to go through a complete paper application again. So we just wanted to show you that real quick.
Okay, I think it's my turn now to present on three short topics. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. All right, so what I'm going to show, the first topic I'm going to talk about a little bit is how you would withdraw an application. This doesn't happen very often, but we want to give you the direction on how to do it. It's not very difficult at all. So let's say you actually applied for a permit and you lost funding for the project, or for whatever reason, you've decided that you do not want to pursue getting the permit. What you would do is you would go to off your dashboard, you would go to the submittal tab, and you would go down to track submissions. And what you're going to do now is you're going to have to locate your submittal. And the best way to do that would be, again, if you know your submittal ID, you're going to type that in to the search button. So I'm going to do that if I can find the submittal ID I was working on, which was 50105. So I type that in, do a search. Okay, so here's an application that I submitted, and now I want to withdraw it. So again, I'm going to go to this View Submittal button, and that'll give me this screen up here where I'm within the submittal tab. There's these other tabs here, but you want to go to this submittal tab. And right down here in the middle, it'll say application withdrawal. So here's where you're going to put in the reason why you are requesting withdrawal of the application. And keep in mind, we cannot withdraw your application. This is something that you actually have to request us to do. So if we tell you, well, we think your application should be withdrawn, you're going to have to go into Easy Air and then initiate that action. We can't just unilaterally withdraw it for you. So what you're going to do then is you're going to just, whatever the reason is, you're going to just type that in, you're going to hit request, and it'll give you that question, and then you'll go ahead with it. And then it'll show up, it'll come over to us, and we will get it. If we approve it, then we will okay it, and then we will send you back, we will approve it, and then the system is going to send you back an email that the application has been withdrawn. So let me just show you an example of what that would look like. This was on another one that we actually withdrew and then approved the withdrawal. So you can see here on this review status, it'll show up on the track submission screen. It's actually going to show up as withdrawn. And then if we go into the information itself, we will see that under the email history, the system is going to send you back that the withdrawal request was accepted. Okay, so then you would know that it's completely out and you're finished. Okay, so you can, again, when you make your withdrawal, then what you're going to see over here is request for withdrawal. And then when we approve it, this would change to withdrawn, and then you'll get the email back. All right, that doesn't happen very often, so I don't think I need to talk about that anymore.
John?
Yes.
We did receive a question.
Okay.
This might be a question for Ashley or Daniel, but if we modify a permit that has already been uploaded into Slice, will the changes be automatically made in Slice?
Yeah, that's a good question. And Daniel, you'd want to talk about that based on what we know as far as how information's going from Easy Air to Slice?
Sure. Permit is has been issued in Easy Air.
Correct.
That data, those characteristics from that permit will be pushed to Slice. So if you do go in and modify a permit, it's going to be and change a stack characteristic, for example, or the name of the emission unit or something like that, it is going to make that change in Slice as well.
Daniel, do we know, does that happen as soon as the permit gets modified, or does it happen periodically through the year? I mean, is this data continuously flowing over to Slice?
Yeah, the way it's currently working in the system is that it has to be manually done, manually pushed from Easy Air to Slice after a project is completed, meaning that the engineer or the support staff have to actually go in and press a button to push that data. However, right now we're working on the automation of that so that it'll just periodically check and push that data on a more frequent basis, on a daily basis.
Okay, we'll go on then. Thank you. The next thing I want to show you is how to request a determination, how to make a determination request. And for that, you're basically going to apply using a form that is in their start a new submittal area. So I'm going to click on that. Then you would come down here and find it. So you would just basically come to this construction determination, click the start button, and then that's going to open up the form. I've already started one of these, so I just want to take a little bit of a shortcut and show you what that would look like. So I've started this, so I'm going to go to my edit pending submittals, I'm going to type in the submittal ID number, and then I will find the determination request that I've already started. So here it is, and now I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to finish it, and then we're going to submit it. So first thing you're going to observe is over here on the wizard side, the wizard panel, it's much shorter than, it's similar to what you would see for a standard construction permit application, but it's much shorter. There's only really 3 forms that you need to worry about. There's the facility information form, which I've already filled out. It's preloaded, and that's identical to what you would do for a standard construction permit application. So we're just going to go on to the next form, which is the actual determination request. So here what you have is basically just a box where you're going to fill in your question. And, you know, the question you might have is, well, what are some situations where you'd be using this application? Well, one would be perhaps you're not sure if there's a rule that applies to some process that you're thinking about installing, or maybe you're making some changes and you're concerned that it might require you to modify the permit, or there might be, again, an applicability question about a federal new source performance standard. So whatever your question is, this is a very, it's just a box, so you could ask any question. A lot of the questions we get, we can answer over the phone in a few minutes, but there are some questions, as everybody knows, that are much more difficult. Air pollution regulations are complicated, and if you want to get a written response from us or a written confirmation that you're, doing something, appropriately, getting a determination request into us is a good way to go, because then you are going to get something back from us. We'll be able to track our time, spend time on it, and do a good job in evaluating it. So these can be fairly important. A lot of times questions can be answered easily over the phone, but on the important questions, you probably want to get it in writing. So I'm just going to type here about a situation, about a facility that's going to replace an existing grinder for limestone. We plan to replace an existing grinder for limestone with a new grinder. Okay. And then I will just put down, it has a permit number, and that's helpful for us. It's EP16, and it's permit 83A078S4. So it's an old grinder. You give us the permit number, it's going to help us actually find the the grinder and evaluate it. Do we need to modify our permit? And will this be subject to NSPS 000? Because let's say this grinder grinds limestone, and that's probably an important part of the whole question. So you give us what you think you need as important information. If you have a lot of information that you want to provide, you would simply just check this box, and then there's an attachment feature just like we had with the application that you can use. Another thing is, if you've been talking to somebody about this, maybe you've had some telephone calls, somebody on the helpline, or you've actually been talking to an engineer, it's helpful with that when we receive this, that we know that communication has been going on. So, you would include that person's name, because then the supervisor is probably going to assign it to that person so that the conversation can continue and we're not just starting all over again from the beginning. All right, so we would save that, and then we would go on. If you're a major source, there will be a fee associated with determination requests. If you're a minor source, there's no fee. So there's not, this is a minor facility, so there's nothing going on there. So we will just go on to the next area. Here again, you have options to attach. Again, if you want to tell us a lot more about whatever the question is, you would just pick either project description or other, go for it. We have no attachments here, so I'm just going to go on to the next. Similar to the construction permit application, there's a validation. And you would, if there was anything missing, this would be where it would be caught. So we will just go on. Here again is the submittal. This is similar to what Michael showed you earlier. So I will just, for the sake of completion, I'll just go through that, put in our security question answer and our PIN, and then we will submit it. So that's all there is to it. And then there's our receipt, like we were trying to show you with the standard application. It'll come up and you'll get that right away. So make sure you get a receipt like this when you submit any type of application. Okay, and then the last thing I want to show you is I want to show you how to submit an application for what we call a permit template. Let me go back, start a new submittal for this, of course, go back to that. And as I said at the beginning of the webinar, we have 5 of these permit templates. And these work a little bit differently from our normal permitting procedure. Normally we're permitting by emission point. Each stack is going to get its own permit. But for these general permits, we're looking at the entire facility. You get one permit for the entire facility. This is an option. You certainly, if you don't want to get a permit template, or what we also call general permit, if you don't want to get a general permit, or if you don't meet the eligibility requirements, then you would use standard construction permits, and you would get individual permits for each emission point. But the 5 that we have, again, are for aggregate processing plants, rock crushing, bulk gasoline plants. These are facilities that store gasoline and distribute it to delivery trucks. Concrete batch plants that are making, mixing together and making concrete. Group 2 grain elevators, which are the larger grain elevators. And then finally, facilities that make hot mix asphalt. So those are the 5 industrial groups that can use these general permits. So the one I'm going to show you is the one for the concrete batch plant. So again, we're going to open that up. We're going to do like Mike showed earlier. We're going to click on it. Now again, you'll see there's a wizard panel here to help you out. It's going to be different from standard application. There are some similarities, but it's going to be a little bit different. One of the first things you're going to discover is, if you're applying for one of these general permits, is you have to do a lot more reading and you do a lot less data entry. These permits were set up so that it's a simplified permitting approach, less expensive. The permit fee is a flat fee of $100. But the thing that you have to be mindful of before you get into one of these is that you have to meet certain eligibility requirements. And if your plant does not meet the eligibility requirement, then you're not allowed to use one of these general permits, and you have to get a standard construction permit. So I can't emphasize that enough. We've had some situations where people have used these, and then it was discovered the plant was not eligible. And then of course that leads to a lot of complications. So you need to spend some time reading. A lot of this is spelled out. And again, this is in our, we've been using these for over 15 years, and nothing has really changed as far as the exclusions, prohibited locations. When you get, after you read, then you'll find that you'll have to check a box saying that you have read that information. On the paper copy, you were initialing each page. Okay, so here, simple information about the facility contact and then the facility location. I'm going to say that this is a portable plant, and then it's going to ask you for some information about the location, the staging area of that portable plant, and I'll just say it's the same as the facility address. So again, a lot of the plants that get these types of permits are portable. We do require permits for portable plants in Iowa. So whether it's a stationary concrete batch plant or a portable one, not really any different in our minds. So we'll just go ahead to the next screen and see what else we have to do. So it will ask you some questions. All of these templates are going to ask questions about the type of equipment you got, the type of plant. They're all a little bit different, but they're all a little bit the same. You're not doing any calculations for these types of applications, so there's a lot less work involved, but you're still going to have to give us correct information about the plant. So here we're going to have a plant that's a truck mix plant, and the truck loadout is going to be controlled with a bag house that has a stack between 20 and 37 feet. So there's other options here that you'd have to check. Okay, we'll go on to the next screen. And again, the next several screens will be, you're just going to have to basically agree that you're going to comply with either emission limits or you're going to meet some operating limit. If you go on and you do not check, the system is going to catch you there. So you have to make sure you're checking every little box that's at the bottom of the page or at the bottom of a section before you proceed on to the next page. So here we have a page for federal rules. We're going to check that. And again, when you're doing this, you're going to take your time. I'm doing it just for the sake of showing you how to do it. Here we have some additional requirements as far as stack parameters, operating limits, plant specific limits, BMPs. So again, you would want to read through all those, and if you're okay with all of them, you feel you can meet all of them, these are your permit conditions now. The permit we issue you is going to be based on what you're seeing when you're going through this. So if you can agree to all of them, then you go forward. You know, if you can't agree to them, then you either have to make some changes to the plant or use a different permit option. Okay. Now, the one place you do have to enter information is for an equipment list. One thing you'll find is using these general permits, you don't have an attachment option here. You're not going to be given an attachment option. So you will have to give us, just like we ask now, an equipment list. And generally, these should be pretty comprehensive because, you know, again, this is a facility-wide permit. So like, for example, at a concrete batch plant, you're going to have silos, you're going to have the truck loadout, but you're going to have some other things. You're going to have, you know, conveyors. You're going to have maybe storage piles. You might have a boiler, even if it's a small boiler. You're going to have a weigh hopper. So you want to do a good job in this equipment list. So don't shortcut that and say, oh, we're just going to have a concrete, you know, a mixer and that's it. So make sure you list all the equipment because otherwise you may get questions and that's going to delay getting the permit. So all we're going to do here is we're going to add some information into a table. So you just click on add new record, and then I would type in the equipment that I have. And again, some of these fields are not required, but there are some where the information is required. If you don't know the model of some equipment, you just could fill that in. You'd want to give like an emission unit ID. If there's a bag house, let's say on the cement silo, yeah, that's probably a good idea because I think that's a requirement for using this template. Or a bin vent, you know, if it's a bag house or a bin vent, whatever you want to call it, you've got some controls on there, and so you would fill that out. So you'd want to do that for each and every piece of equipment, and even, you know, storage piles, roadways, whatever you've got, just include everything. And again, when you get on these tables, you're going to click that little check mark to save it, and then you would go from there. So this would, I would say probably 10, 11. You should probably have about 10 or 11 for a typical concrete batch plant, you know, 10 emission units, 10 different operations. All right, so we'll go on. Greenhouse gases. The only time you have greenhouse gases emitted from a plant like this would be if you're burning anything. So if you do have a boiler, there'd be greenhouse gases. If you have an emergency generator, emergency engine, or if it's a portable plant and the plant's run by an engine, then you definitely are going to have a greenhouse gases emitted. But if they're not, and if you do, so then you're going to enter them in the table. I will say that up here, we have a spreadsheet, Excel spreadsheet that you would be able to get. And if you click on this greenhouse gas emissions page, it will take you to an Excel spreadsheet that will allow you to easily calculate greenhouse gas emissions from any combustion source. So take advantage of that link. All right, but I'm going to say I don't have any combustion, so I will go on. There, you see here, there's no attachment capability, unfortunately, with these types of applications. So you're just going to have to make sure your application is detailed and has all the information we need. You will do the validation step. You will do the payment step. And then we will go on to the submit application step. So that would be similar to what we've seen before. So again, for any of these applications or termination requests, you need to go through this submit application step, just like we saw with the standard application. So there's our receipt again, and we're through with that. I think that's it. Again, I want to emphasize the most important thing in using a permit template is make sure you understand what you're agreeing to and what you're getting into before you apply for it.
Okay, thanks, John. All right. Okay, so I'm going to talk about how you would go about amending an application. So if you need to amend an application, this is if you've already submitted an application and we're currently reviewing it, and you need to either add an emission point or an emission unit or modify something else in the application, you would ask to amend that application or modify it. We also sometimes, the engineer reviewing the application will ask for more information. And if we need that information to be part of the application, we'll send back that application to you. If you want to simply upload documents to an existing application, you should be able to do that within your dashboard, or you can send those documents directly to us. So for example, if we need additional manufacturer specifications or something like that, we typically don't need to send back the application for those situations. But if you're adding in a new emission point, changing existing characteristics for emission units, control devices, or you need to do something else for you to make those changes and send it back to us. So if you need to modify the application or amend it, or we ask you to modify it, we're going to send that application back to you, and we can open up one of these recent applications. This one from Mike, so you can see what it looks like on the agency side. We have the application here. Here's the workflow, the beginning of the workflow, and then we have this feature to send back the application for amendment. And we'll select the forms that need to be open for editing. So sometimes if we only need an emission point, characteristic change, or something like that, we'll only select that form, and you'll only be able to edit that form or that page. You'll still be able to see all the other information within the application, but you won't be able to make any changes before you send it back to us. And then we would just click send back, and it will send back the application. Now, when you have an application that's been sent back, you can find that application in on your public site here under Edit Pending Submittals. So this is the same as if you had an application that you had started, but you haven't submitted it yet. It'll still be in the same section if it's back to you for amendment. It's essentially a pending application once again at this point. You can also find it here on the left-hand side under pending submittal, or you can access it using your dashboard and the if you have the submittal ID handy. So here we have an application that I've sent back for amendment. So you would go in and click edit, and you'll see a button that says amend application. You would click that button, and it'll take you to the first form that's open for editing. So this one, I think we have maybe all the forms open for editing. So you can go in and make any changes that you need to. And then you can go through the application and essentially make any changes you need to, add any equipment, remove equipment, anything that you need in the application. And we'll usually put in a note when we send back that application so that you can see exactly what we're looking for if we haven't already communicated that with you, which hopefully we have. So going through, you're going to see that all these buttons in this application are open. So you can see that they're blue, which means that you can make any changes to these forms, click next or previous or save to save the forms. If a specific page or form is unavailable for editing, meaning we haven't, you've already seen in this webinar so far that Mike and John have talked about. It's essentially like you're working on a pending application. You would go through all the validation. You can modify your attachments, go through the validation step, payment if you're a minor source, and then go through to submit the application again. And here on the public site, you're going to see it's going to be the same information that you would see for a standard application. So if you're the responsible official for construction permitting for that specific facility, you'll be able to just submit the application. If you're just a preparer for that facility, you'll be able to notify the responsible official or RO that the application is ready to be reviewed and they can resubmit it. So that's something that's kind of important to keep in mind. You do need the responsible official for construction permitting to resubmit that application after it's been amended. And here, this is a paper application, so we would work on it on the agency side. And you're going to see after the after the application's been submitted, you're going to get a submittal receipt, and the application will be received by us. So are there any questions on amending applications?
Daniel, I had a comment. Your audio kind of cut out when you were talking about what happens when the facility gets to a form and it's grayed out. What do you recommend? You know, let's say there's a form that they feel like they need to modify, but we didn't give them that option. What are the steps they're supposed to follow then?
So if there's a form that you need to modify, hopefully we've already caught it for it's been sent back. But if, for example, you start working on a couple forms and you realize, oh, I also need the emission unit form opened up or something else, you'll need to submit that application and then we'll need to send it back for amendment. So sometimes that's a little bit, I guess, cumbersome if you're not the RO and you kind of have to keep notifying the RO to resubmit that application. In a lot of cases, I think we're just going to send back all of the forms just so that just so we don't run into that issue where certain forms aren't available. That might be necessary. But if it's something where, okay, we know you only need to change a stack characteristic on the emission point form, then maybe we can just send that back and that's it. But yeah, you would need to resubmit that application and then we would have to send it back for amendment in order to open up more forms.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, so now now I'm going to talk about the reports or the notifications in a system. And in order to do that, I'm going to switch over to the public side. So the main reports that are currently in the system or notifications are your start of construction notification, where you notify us that construction has begun on a source or sources covered by a permit, and your start of operation notification, which is the notification you'd submit when operation of that source or sources has actually commenced or begun. The way that the system's currently set up, after a permit's issued, we use the actual issuance date to determine when those reports are due. So the start of construction is due within 18 months following the date of the permit issuance, so the permit issuance date. And then the start of operation is required to be to start within 36 months of the permit issuance date. So we've set it up so that Easy Air will actually give you a notification here on your dashboard that says, hey, within the next couple of months, you need to submit the start of construction notification for this source or the start of operation for this source, just so you know that that's coming up. The way that the current start of operation, start of construction notification process works is that you would go in, there's a form for each of those notifications that we have, a form, a template, and you would fill out that template with all the applicable information for that source. So the permit number, your contact information, the actual date for the start of construction or the start of operation, and you would send that into us. We take that form and we put it into our stack test database in order to see when certain stack testing is due and so forth. The way that Easy Air works is you can submit those online, obviously through the system, or if you submit the paper application or the paper notification forms, they would go to our support staff who would then put it into Easy Air, and all of that data is going to be transferred to the stack test database. So in order to access the forms, the notification forms, you could either find them here if it's within 6 months of a deadline, so start of operation or start of construction, 18 months or 36 months from the permit issuance date. Or if it's not there, you just click start a new submittal or apply for a new submittal here. And when you click on this start a new submittal, you're not going to see the start of construction, start of operation modules just yet. You need to go up here to the category and switch to report or all. So if you switch to report, click search, you're going to see the start of construction, start of operation modules right there. And then if you click all, you're going to see them here at the very end of the submittal types that are available to you. And when you
Could
click,
you show us that
one
more time, please? Could you just
So
show us
if
that
you-
one more time?
Sure. So you go to start a new submittal, and here you have all your options for application types that you can submit. So standard applications, the templates, determinations, of course, Title V if your facility is a Title V facility. And then you go up to category up here in the search bar, and you can select all or report, and then you click search.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And then you click start here, and you can see all of the permits that you need to submit the report or notification for. So you would find your permit number here, and you would click this edit button if it's available. If it's kind of grayed out like this, it means that there's already a report that's been created in the system. So either it's going to be under pending if you haven't finished it, or it's going to be something that's already been submitted. So we're going to open up this report that hasn't been opened yet or created. We're going to click create here. You use this online entry form and click continue. And one of the first things you'll notice when you open up one of these notification reports is that all of your information is going to be filled in. So you're going to have your facility name, your address, your facility number, emission point ID, permit number, your emission point description. Everything is going to be filled in. This is something that all these fields would have been required under the paper form, or if you choose to submit a paper form, you're going to have to fill out all this information yourself. All you have to do in Easy Air is you have to select your start of operation date or start of construction date. So we're going to put the 23rd for this one. Click next. You have the form view. The only validation that the system has for these notification reports is that you put in a date. You would click next, and then you would go in through the submittal process, which here I'm only a preparer for this facility, so I would notify the RO for that. And that's it for the notification reports within the system. It's pretty straightforward. You just have to fill in the date and go through the regular submission process in order to submit those reports through using the system.